My best friend since age 6 cheated with her married boss. When I confronted her, she falsely accused me of violence and theft. But I recorded her confession months later, and the justice that came left everyone broken. I'm 28 years old, I'm a software developer, and until about a year and a half ago, I had a pretty normal life. You know, the kind of life anyone would want, with a good job, a decent apartment in Hartford, and a 5-year relationship with my childhood best friend. But turns out all of that went to shit in a matter of weeks. And not in the way you think. I mean, it wasn't just a difficult breakup or losing my job. It was way worse. It was that the person I trusted most in the world completely destroyed my life, and I almost ended up in prison for things I never did. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I met Danielle, we were 6 years old, and she had just moved into the house next door with her parents, Frank and Nancy. Frank was ex-military. The kind of intimidating dad who cleans his gun on the porch when you come to pick up his daughter, and Nancy was an elementary school teacher. Super sweet, but also the type who doesn't miss anything that happens in the neighborhood. It was a shy kid, pretty nerdy from a young age if I'm being honest, and Danielle was this energetic girl who simply decided we were going to be friends. She didn't ask me. She just showed up one day in my yard and said, "Hi, I'm Danielle, and we're going to play." Just like that. We became inseparable, basically immediately. We grew up together. You know, the whole classic neighborhood best friends thing. We built forts in the backyard, played video games until 3 in the morning in the summer, covered for each other when one of us screwed up with the parents. She was the one who taught me to ride a bike without training wheels. I was the one who helped her pass algebra in 8th grade. When we were like 12 or 13, people were already joking that someday we'd get married, and we'd laugh and say we were just friends. But I think we both knew there was something more there. In junior year of high school, it finally happened. It was after the winter dance. We were sitting in her car, in a McDonald's parking lot at 11 at night, eating fries and talking about I don't know what. And suddenly she went quiet and looked at me with this weird expression. And I thought, this is it, man. This is the moment. I kissed her and she kissed me back, and it was perfect in that awkward and clumsy way that first kisses are when you're 17. The next day I said, "So, are we boyfriend and girlfriend now?" And she laughed and said, "Obviously, idiot. We've been like dating for 11 years, we just hadn't realized it. College was complicated because we ended up in different places. I went to UConn to study computer science, and she went to a university in Boston for marketing. But we made it work. We took turns driving every weekend. We video called every night even if we were dead tired. We spent all the summers together. It was hard, but I never doubted us. Never. Not for a second. When we graduated, we both got jobs in the Hartford area. Me at a medium-sized software company and her at a marketing agency. And we finally got to move in together to an apartment in the suburbs. Living together was amazing at first. We adopted a cat, an orange tabby with one eye named Mr. Whiskers. Long story, but basically we found him in an alley, and Danielle insisted we keep him. We decorated the place together. We cooked elaborate dinners on weekends. We basically lived that happy young couple life you see in IKEA commercials. I thought, this is it. This is my person. We're going to grow old together, and someday I'll tell our grandkids about how we were neighbors since we were 6 years old. Things started to change when Danielle got a promotion at her job like 2 years ago. Her new boss was this guy named Anthony, like 15 years older than us, married with 2 kids, the typical successful corporate type with expensive suits and a BMW. At first, Danielle talked about him all the time, like Anthony says this. Anthony thinks that, and I thought it was normal, you know? When you have a new boss you like, you talk about that. But she started working later, having more business trips, being on her phone all the time, even when we were having dinner or watching movies. I'd ask her if everything was okay and she'd say yes, that it was just a lot of work, that the new position was demanding. And I believed her because, why wouldn't I believe her? It was Danielle, my best friend since we were 6, the person I knew better than anyone in the world. Looking back now, I can see all the signs, like when she started wearing nicer clothes for work, when she began going to the gym religiously even though she'd never cared much before, when her phone suddenly had a password when it never had one before, when the night I discovered everything was like a year and a half ago. It was like 2 in the morning, and I had gotten up to get water. Danielle had fallen asleep on the couch with her laptop open, which happened often because she worked late. Her phone was on the coffee table, and I saw it light up with a message. Normally, I would never look. Like, I respect people's privacy, but the message preview said something like, "Can't stop thinking about last night," and it came from a contact saved as Anthony Work. My stomach sank immediately. I don't know what came over me in that moment. Something in my brain just knew. I took the phone, tried her password, which luckily she hadn't changed. It was the date of our first kiss. How ironic, right? And opened the messages. And there it all was. Months and months of conversations, photos, plans to meet at hotels, messages saying "I love you" to each other, even conversations about how they were going to be together someday when he left his wife. I felt like someone had kicked me in the stomach, literally couldn't breathe properly. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. I woke her up right there, like at 2:30 in the morning. I just said her name and she woke up, half confused. And when she saw I had her phone in my hand and saw my face, I knew that she knew that I knew. She went pale, like I'd never seen someone lose color that fast. She tried to speak, but I cut her off and said, "You need to leave. Right now, pack your things and go." She started crying and saying she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that she loved me. All that classic shit they say when they get caught, but I didn't want to hear any of it. I gave her 20 minutes to pack the essentials and told her she could come back later for the rest of her stuff. While she packed, she kept trying to explain herself, saying that Anthony understood her in ways I didn't, that she felt lonely, that I worked too much. Can you believe it? I worked too much. And I just stood there, watching this person I thought I knew become a complete stranger in front of my eyes. When she finally left, it was like 4 in the morning. I sat on the couch with Mr. Whiskers and just stayed there, not even crying, just feeling this huge emptiness in my chest. I called work the next day and said I was sick, which was technically true because I threw up like 3 times that morning. I texted my older sister Lily, who's a medical resident and basically the most sensible person I know, and told her everything. She drove from New Haven immediately and spent the day with me, helping me process everything. She told me I needed to talk to Danielle's parents because they deserved to know, especially Frank and Nancy, who had treated me like a son all these years. But I didn't get to make that call because 3 days later, 3 fucking days, the police showed up at my office. They arrived in the middle of the day, in front of all my coworkers, and said I was under arrest for domestic violence, abuse, and theft. I didn't understand anything. Like, I literally thought it was a joke or a mistake, and I told them they must be looking for someone else. They handcuffed me right there, read me my rights, and took me out of the building while everyone stared at me. The humiliation was indescribable. Seriously, it was like a nightmare, but I couldn't wake up. At the station, I found out what was happening. Danielle had filed a report saying I had been physically and emotionally abusing her for months, that when I confronted her about innocent work messages, I got violent and hit her, and that I had also stolen jewelry from her mom valued at like $50,000. It was all lies, every word. But she had photos of bruises on her arms and on her face. She had text messages that supposedly I had sent her threatening her. She had a statement from Anthony saying she had confided in him about the abuse weeks before. I spent 3 nights in jail waiting for the bail hearing. 3 nights that were the longest and most terrifying of my life. I'd never been in trouble with the law, not even a traffic ticket. And suddenly I was there with actual criminals, sleeping in a cold cell, eating disgusting food, feeling completely helpless. Lily got the money for bail, basically pawned everything she had and convinced our parents to help, even though they were confused and kind of in shock about everything. When I got out, I had already lost my job. The company said it was for unauthorized absence and negative publicity, because turns out the story had made the local news. Local man arrested for domestic abuse and theft, with my photo and everything. My name was destroyed. Friends I'd known since college stopped responding to my messages. People at the supermarket looked at me weird. I had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford the apartment on my own, and Mr. Whiskers had to stay with Lily because my parents are allergic. The relationship with my parents got super tense. They said they believed me, but I could see the doubt in their eyes, especially in my dad's. They had known Danielle her whole life. They loved her like a daughter, and I think part of them couldn't believe she would make something like that up. Dinners were awkward and silent. My mom cried when she thought I wasn't looking. My dad spent all his time in his workshop avoiding me. It was horrible, feeling like a stranger in my own home, like even my family doubted me. The last straw was when Frank and Nancy filed a civil lawsuit against me for the value of the jewelry plus emotional and punitive damages. They were asking for like $200,000. Frank, the same guy who had taught me how to change a car's oil, who took me to baseball games, who joked about how someday I'd be his son-in-law, was now suing me. Nancy, who baked me cookies when I was studying for finals, looked at me with pure hatred when we'd cross paths at preliminary hearings. I spent months in this horrible legal limbo. I got a defense attorney who basically told me things looked bad because Danielle had physical evidence and testimonies, and that maybe I should consider a plea deal. But I refused. No way. Was I going to plead guilty to something I didn't do? I'd rather go to trial and go to prison than admit to something false. My sister Lily was the only person who never doubted me for even a second. She visited me every day after her 12-hour shifts at the hospital, brought Chinese food, we'd watch stupid Netflix shows. She forced me to get out of bed when all I wanted to do was disappear. I hit rock bottom like 6 months after all this. I had gained like 20 pounds because all I did was eat junk food and lie around. I didn't shower for days. I had basically stopped being a functional person. One night, Lily came over and found me just lying in the dark at 3 in the afternoon, and she shook me and yelled at me, "I'm not going to let you do this. You're not going to let her win like this." And she was right. You know, I was letting Danielle destroy me even more than she already had. Lily and I did what she called Operation Phoenix. She's super nerdy, but that's how she is. I got freelance work doing web development from home. It didn't pay much, but it was something. I started therapy twice a week. Lily paid for it at first until I could. I began going to the gym, eating better, rebuilding my life piece by piece. I made some new friends in a support group for falsely accused people, which helped me realize I wasn't alone in this. After like 9 months, I got a real job again. At a small startup where the CEO was someone who had been through something similar and understood. It didn't pay as much as my previous job, but it was a start. I moved into a small apartment, got Mr. Whiskers back from Lily's place, started feeling like a human again. I still had the criminal case pending and the civil lawsuit, but at least I wasn't completely in the hole anymore. Then, like a year after that horrible 2 a.m. night, Danielle showed up at my door. It was like 8 at night on a Tuesday. I had just gotten home from work, and when I opened the door there, she was crying hysterically. She looked terrible. Hadn't been sleeping or eating well in weeks. And the first thing she said was, "I'm so sorry, Ian. I ruined everything. I ruined my life and yours, and I don't know how to live with this." My first instinct was to slam the door in her face, but something stopped me. I just stood there staring at her, and she kept talking, saying she needed to tell me the truth, that she couldn't take the guilt anymore. I told her to leave, but she refused, kept talking, and basically broke down right there in my building's hallway. I let her in, not because I forgave her or because I felt sorry, but because I needed to know the truth. I needed to understand why she had done this to me. And there, sitting on my couch while Mr. Whiskers stared at her with his one eye like judging her, Danielle told me everything. The affair with Anthony had started like 8 months before I discovered it. He was stealing money from the company, using fake expenses and phantom accounts, and she was helping him cover it up because she was in love with him, and he promised they'd leave everything and start a new life together. When I found out about them, she panicked because she thought I was going to the police or that I was going to contact Anthony's wife or something, and Anthony told her they needed to shut me up. The idea of falsely accusing me was Anthony's. He told her it was the only way to protect themselves. That if I was busy defending myself from criminal charges, I wouldn't have time or resources to investigate them. The bruises in the photos were real, but Anthony made them. He specifically hit her so she could document it as evidence against me. Her mom's jewelry was never stolen, Danielle had sold it months before to help Anthony pay some debts, and then she simply reported it missing and blamed me. The threatening text messages I supposedly sent were from a fake number Anthony had set up. The testimonies about the abuse were completely made up, including Anthony's, who had never seen anything because nothing had happened. Everything, absolutely everything, was an elaborate lie to destroy me and protect their affair and their financial crimes. While she talked, I was processing all this and simultaneously recording the conversation with my phone. Lily had told me months ago to record everything, all interactions with anyone related to the case. In Connecticut, it's legal to record conversations if one party consents, and that party was me. So there I was, recording while Danielle confessed everything, crying and saying she was sorry, that she had left Anthony months ago when she realized he was never going to leave his wife, that she had been living with the guilt eating her alive. I asked her why she was here now, why she was telling me this, and she said she couldn't live like this anymore, that the guilt was killing her, that she had tried to kill herself twice, and that she needed to clear her conscience. I told her this didn't clear anything, that she destroyed my life, my career, my relationship with my family, everything, and that saying sorry didn't fix any of that. She kept crying and saying she knew, that she would go to the police and confess everything, that she would do the right thing. After she left, I immediately called my lawyer, Monica, who, by the way, was incredible, and was charging me reduced rates because she believed in my innocence. I sent her the recording that same night. The next day, Monica submitted it as evidence to the prosecutor and the civil suit judge. The response was immediate. The prosecutor dropped all criminal charges against me within 48 hours. Frank and Nancy withdrew the civil lawsuit literally the day after hearing the recording, and Nancy called me crying, asking for forgiveness, saying they didn't know, that Danielle had lied to them too. Monica filed a countersuit for defamation against Danielle, seeking compensation for lost income, reputational damage, emotional distress, everything. We also reported everything about Anthony and the corporate fraud to the company where they worked and to the relevant authorities. Turns out, an HR manager named Rachel had been suspecting irregularities in Anthony's expense reports for months, but didn't have enough proof until we presented the information. The investigation confirmed everything. Anthony had stolen like $300,000 from the company over 2 years. Danielle had been actively helping him, falsifying documents and covering the trail. They were both fired immediately and faced criminal charges for fraud. Anthony's wife divorced him in record time and took everything in the settlement. Danielle's parents basically disowned her. Not completely, but their relationship was destroyed. My defamation case took several months, but in the end, we won. Danielle had to pay me like $150,000 in damages, money she didn't even have because she was bankrupt from her own legal problems, so basically I'm going to be receiving minimum payments for years. But it wasn't really about the money, it was about the principle, about officially clearing my name. The local newspaper that had published the original story about my arrest published a big update when everything came to light. My old employer even contacted me offering my job back with a raise, but I told them to fuck off because, seriously, I didn't want to work for people who abandoned me like that without asking for my side of the story. My relationship with my parents improved a lot once everything was cleared up. My dad even cried and asked me for forgiveness for having doubted, which was super weird because he's not the emotional type. Like 3 weeks ago, I got a message from Frank, Danielle's dad. He asked if we could meet for coffee, and I agreed because, I don't know, I felt he deserved that conversation. We met at the same Starbucks where we used to go when I was a teenager and would pick up Danielle to go out. He looked old, older than someone his age should look, and he told me he would never forgive himself for believing me capable of those things, for not questioning Danielle's story more, for suing me. I told him I understood, that she had manipulated him too, that we were all victims of her in different ways. He told me Danielle is in intensive therapy now, living in another state with an aunt, trying to rebuild her life, although it will be difficult with a criminal record and bankruptcy. Part of me felt bad for her when Frank told me, but it's a very small part. Most of me is still angry, probably always will be, because she didn't just betray me with the affair, which would have been bad enough, but she literally tried to destroy my entire life to cover up her own crimes. Anthony is in prison, serving a 5-year sentence for corporate fraud. His ex-wife remarried like 2 months ago. I saw the photos on Facebook, yeah, I stalked her a bit, don't judge me, and she looks genuinely happy with her kids and her new husband. I hope she's doing well. She didn't deserve any of what happened to her. As for me, I'm okay, I guess. Better than okay in many ways. I have a job I like at the startup. We're doing some really innovative stuff with artificial intelligence. I met someone like 6 months ago, a graphic designer named Sarah, and things are going slow but well. Lily met her last month and gave her approval, which is important to me because I trust my sister's judgment more than my own after all this. I still go to therapy. I'll probably keep going for years because this left me with serious trust issues. Like, I have a hard time believing people even when there's no reason to doubt. Sarah understands. She's patient and doesn't get offended when I ask to verify things or when I have moments of paranoia. Mr. Whiskers is still the same grumpy, one-eyed cat. He sleeps in my bed every night and is basically my unofficial therapist. Sometimes I think about that 6-year-old girl who showed up in my yard and decided we were going to be friends, and I wonder at what exact moment that person became someone capable of doing what she did to me. I don't have an answer for that, and I probably never will. But what I do know is that I survived the worst betrayal anyone could imagine. I was about to go to prison for crimes I didn't commit. I lost practically everything, and I'm still here, rebuilding, moving forward. Last week, my niece, Lily's daughter, asked me if I would ever be friends with Danielle again. She's 5 years old and doesn't really understand what happened. She just knows I don't see Aunt Danielle anymore, who she met when she was a baby. I told her no, that sometimes the people we love hurt us in ways that can't be repaired, and that it's okay to walk away from them even if you've known them your whole life. She gave me a hug and said she would never hurt me like that, and I believed her because she's 5 and pure and innocent. But I also told her it's okay to trust people, but always keep your eyes open. Maybe it's too cynical a lesson for a 5-year-old. I don't know, but it's the truth I learned the hard way.